Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is currently 11:41 a.m. and today's date is October 13th, 2024. I went to bed around 6 a.m. and then I got up around 9 because my daughter came to the room and she was like, "Daddy, Daddy." And I had to get up and made her breakfast. But it was fun to do. I enjoy doing it. And yes, I am back here. I am back here. I am back here. How are you guys doing? It is currently Sunday morning. How is your Sunday morning going? And it's sunny outside. Thank you for tuning in one more time. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. We are back for another episode of the live show. All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. Did you guys have breakfast yet? Did you have breakfast? And how is your morning going? How is your Sunday going? I hope you and your family are doing wonderful. I hope all is well with you. I hope you feel grateful for what you have. I hope you are thankful for life. And I hope everybody feels great about themselves. You know what I always say? Never give up on yourself, never give up on your dreams, never give up on God. Believe in yourself, believe in your dreams, believe in God. Okay? The title for today's show is Why Momentum Matters. Why Momentum Matters. Well, the momentum is high right now for the Republican Party. 100% JD has contributed to that momentum. And of course, the legendary, the 45th. Some people say he might be the 47th. What do you think? He has contributed to the momentum big time. He's been doing this for like 2 years now, moving around the country, talking about why he needs to get back in the White House. And I would say that has really propelled him to the level that he is right now. The momentum that he has now is an accumulation of everything he's been doing around the nation for over 2 years now. You know what I mean? Talking to the media, talking to the people, town halls, as well as the debates, the one he had with Joe and the second one he also had with Kamala. All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. If you're just tuning in, thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time tuning in, God bless you, okay? Thank you. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. Today, this beautiful morning, we are going to listen to the former president, the 45th president of the United States. He is running to be the 47th also. All right. All right. So we're going to listen to a round table talk with the legendary, the 45th former president of the United States. Trump had a roundtable talk with the Latino Americans in Henderson, Nevada. Are you ready? Are you ready for that? Are you ready? Are you ready? Okay, give me a moment. All right. We gotta make sure we don't have any interruptions. Stay around here, bro. All right. Get that for you.
Minutes, but Ms. Linda Fornos would like to hear.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get straight into the show today. This roundtable talk happened yesterday, October 12th, and as you can see, the former President Trump holds economy focused roundtable with Latino Nevadans in Henderson, Nevada. Let's get it.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do this.
Let's go.
Welcome to today's roundtable discussion with our host, Building America's Future. This is their 50th stop on America's Future tour. My name is Mayra Flores. I am the first. I am the first Mexican-born Congresswoman sworn into Congress in 2022, and I'm here today to moderate this important discussion. Building America's Future is a 510c4 that was created to inform and empower Americans to take ownership to our country's policy direction and demand that our government at all levels enact policy reforms to improve the lives of Americans. We need to make America's future great again. Today, we are joined by some very special guest, President Donald J. Trump.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Army Captain Sam Brown, U.S. Senate candidate here in Nevada. Bob Unanue, CEO of Goya Foods. Additionally, we are joined by 6 Hispanic Americans from this community who have been impacted by the Biden-Harris administration's policies. They're here to show their stories and how this administration has negatively impacted their lives and has stopped them from moving forward. And we're here to change that. Lydia Ruiz Dominguez, a mother, author, Air Force veteran. We have Brian Ursua, a husband, father of 5, proud Teamster, Local 631 member. We have Elias Trujillo. And now we have also Linda Fornos. We have Iris Ramos Jones. And we have Rafael Arroyo. We know President Trump has built one of the strongest economies ever, lifting up all Americans, especially the Hispanic community. Under President Trump's leadership, the Hispanic community saw a record low unemployment and low poverty. As part of this immediate plan to help our economy recover from this disastrous economic policies from the Biden administration, Harris administration, President Trump has pledged to eliminate taxes on tips so that Americans can keep more money in their pockets. I want to share my father's story, Saul Flores. Back in 2016, he was with her. And in 2020, he voted Republican for the first time. And he voted for President Trump because under his administration, his trucking company was thriving. He saw that his policies empowered his company. And he said, even though I still don't agree with him on everything, I love his policies. And I will be voting for him in 2020.
Thank you.
But he went from being with her in 2016 to voting for president in 2020. And now he's all in for President Trump. And I know that is not just my father. Many Hispanic Americans have seen what the Biden administration have done to their lives. We all have less money in our pockets. We want to be able to take our children to a vacation. We want to be able to take care of our families. And that's exactly what President Trump will do when we get him reelected in November. And now, speaking, Bob Unanue. Before we get to our important discussion, I'm thrilled to be your moderator today. And I would like to introduce a great American and the CEO of Goya Foods, Bob. He's a leader with a spine of steel and a heart of gold. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Bob Unanue.
Thank you, Myra, and you're so important for Texas. You know, I've been down with you a couple times, and I remember you telling me your father said you convinced him to vote your way with God, family, work, freedom. He said, you asked him, why did you vote conservative, Republican? He says, my party has abandoned me. They've abandoned him. And they've abandoned many Latinos. And that's why we're here today, and our future is at stake. I want to also recognize Captain Sam Brown, who at a young age these are people who put their life on the line. And when I see servicemen, I say, not just thank you for your service, thank you for our freedom. We have freedom. We take it for granted. And if we don't get it back, we're going to lose this country. And that's why we're sitting next to the greatest president of our time, Donald J. Trump.
Amen.
Thank you. The song goes, those were the days, my friend. Some of you are old enough to remember that. I thought they'd never end. We'd sing and dance forever and a day. And that's where we were under President Trump. I call them days que buena, so good. I call the days we are today, que mala. How bad has it gotten? How bad has it gotten? It's gotten bad. Under President Trump, our economy was cruising. The best economy ever. Prosperity. We had a safe world. No wars. We had no inflation, virtually no inflation. We had freedom. Under President Trump, Our real average weekly wages were up 8.4%. I'll say later on, under this administration, it's down 3.4. We cannot keep up with the cost of this administration that is hammering not only the Hispanic community, the African American community, all communities. The border was secure. Illegal immigration was at a minimum. Yesterday, the CPI index came out hotter than expected at 2.4%. And this is on top of year after year. And we've had over the years 5.4% inflation. This is on top of historic inflation. Overall prices are up to 20.5%. But let me tell you, I'll steal a phrase from Mr. President, that's fake news. For Goya, it's up more like 50%. We will go out to buy cans. We do a lot of canning. Come to Brookshire, Texas, and we'll show you how we can at 2,000 cans a minute. Very efficient factory. Cans went up 64%. Transportation, ever since the Harris-Biden war on fossil fuels, day one, the Green New Scam, the pulling out of Afghanistan, we showed so much weakness, they invaded Ukraine. Ukraine is a breadbasket for Europe and Northern Africa. They have wheat, 30% of the world's wheat, 20% of the world's corn, 50% of the world's fertilizer. It tripled the cost of fertilizer. What does that do to our crops over here? It goes way up. Under Kamala, real average wages I don't say that, to get a buzz or as an insult. It's reality. She is bad. She's bad for this country. She's bad for Latino. She's bad for all of us. Real average wages were down 3.4%. And wages have been up. I mean, our wages have, in warehousing and all that distribution, have almost doubled. But they're still not keeping up with the cost of this administration, the burden they put on our society. The working class, the middle class, Hispanic and black, African-American populations have been hammered, exploited, used, and abused. It's cost the middle class $2.4 trillion since March of 22. The average middle class household lost $33,000 in real wealth. And you need a six-figure salary in about less than half of the country to buy a home. That was day one. But for me, and we can go on and on about this economy, we've been hammered, but for me the biggest issue under this administration, which I consider evil, and I'll tell you why, is the Hispanic and African American communities being exploited, used, and abused under the greatest slavery in the history of the world. My friend Ben Carson, who's also a friend of the president, said there's more slaves in the world today than in the history of the world. And why is that? Because the only industry that's flourished over the last 4 years is human trafficking and drugs. We are not just inviting people in, we're bringing people in. Let's ask some of the NGOs. We are actively bringing people to this country for exploitation, millions of people. Last year, on April 26, 2023, Tara Lee Rodas testified before Congress that the U.S. is the middleman in the trafficking of children. Last year, there were 85,000 children lost. Not lost, they were sold. In my opinion, they were sold. And we're the middleman, as Tara Lee said. Recently, the Inspector General of HHS, Health and Human Services, under Javier Becerra and Alejandro Mayorkas, Latinos, abusing Latinos, because the Latinos are the biggest target of trafficking. And women are 70% of people trafficked. Children are 25%. Imagine you have a woman taking care of our border, abusing these children. The Inspector General says that 325,000 children are missing. Again, they're not missing. They've been sold. This is pure evil. It's a spiritual war. Back 4 years ago on July 9th, 2020, President Trump invited me to be on the White House Commission for Hispanic Prosperity. This administration fired me. I guess they don't believe in Hispanics or prosperity for Hispanics. But I said the word blessed. It came on my lips from the Holy Spirit. And I got in a heap of trouble, a boycott. But the president supported me. I guess you can call for a boycott. You can't support a company. But he supported us. And we did so well. AOC, who had called for a boycott, we named her Employee of the Month for improving our sales so much. But, and as a Latino, I'm probably going over the 3 minutes. I'm sorry, Myra.
Thank you, Bob.
God placed his hand. God's hand was placed on Donald J. Trump. Then and continues to, and he will not let go. Look at July 13th at 6:11 in the afternoon. St. Paul's letter to Ephesians. Put on the armor of God in this fight against evil. God's hand is on President Trump. He won't take it off. And he's going to bring us to prosperity, to safety. And he's going to lead us closer to God and make America great again. It is my highest honor. You might know this guy, this gentleman sitting next to the former, current, and future President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Thank you both. Thank you very much. Thank you both, and thank you, everybody. And, would you like to take over? You want to go? Would some people like to speak first?
No, we want you.
Okay. Good.
We want everyone here is ready to hear from you.
Okay, good. That's good. Well, thank you very much. And I have to say, with Bob, we became good friends. I didn't know him before the White House, but I got to know him, and he represented Hispanics. He represented a lot of people having to do with manufacturing, business. He's a great businessman. And he had a very interesting situation. The radical left in our country put tremendous pressure on him not to be involved with us, meaning Republicans or conservatives, whatever, people with common sense, I always say, because essentially we're the party of common sense, which becomes a better and better term as time goes by, with men playing in women's sports and open borders and people coming into our country totally unvetted and unchecked, and all of the ridiculous things that you see today. But we are the party of common sense. So Bob has a lot of common sense, and he has a great company. It's a great company, but they were putting a lot of pressure, and I felt very badly for him because they were hitting him hard. They had pickets, they had everything. They were trying to extort him, essentially, and we found out he can't be extorted, and he fought very hard. And then a strange thing happened. A strange thing, his numbers went through the roof. He was selling much more food instead of less food. And they do that. They play that game. It's probably not even legal what they do, but they go after businesses. And not everybody's like Bob, where they're in a position to fight. But his company went absolutely through the roof because of it, because there's tremendous support. We have far more people, far more support than the other side. And the term "Make America Great Again," we are the party of wanting to make America great again. Right now we have a country it's a nation in decline. We're sadly a declining nation, and who would have thought we would have had to say that? But if you look at our borders, they're horrible. They're just, I probably won in 2016 because of the border. I fixed it very quickly, became very, very good, and turned over a great border, and they just destroyed it. From the moment, I always say that my world's favorite chart, the chart I look to the right on, but that was basically a chart on immigration, and that was the lowest immigration we'd had in forever, I think, in recorded history. And then that was my last day in office, and then it became like a rocket ship, that chart, and it went up to the moon. And it was very sad to see all the work that we did, but we'll do it again. The only difference is this is many, many times worse than it was in 2016, Bob. In 2016, we had something that was within reason. We didn't have people with no talent, no brain power, people with that maybe hate our country in a certain way, because you try and figure why would they want prisoners, gang members, drug dealers? Why would they want murderers, by the way, 13,099 murderers? Why would they want these people in our country? Is there any reason for it? You know, usually when Bob or I or some of the good business people around the table, and in the audience I know a couple of great ones. We have Wesley Hunt, a great congressman, by the way. Thank you, Wesley. A great one. He's a great congressman. But we always say, you know, we want to know what the other side is all about. Where are they coming from? This is one of the few times you really say, what are they doing? Where do we benefit? And I guess, you know, you look at it and you say they're not smart, but they're smart, they're cunning, and a lot of them are evil. But you say that maybe they hate our country. I believe they could be some of that, because, you know, when you allow drug lords to come into our country, when you allow the people that they're allowing, and by the way, they're emptying prisons out all over the world. This is no longer South America. This is the entire world. From Africa they come, from Asia they come, the Middle East, South America, yes. But it's not exclusive South America. This is all over the world. The Congo, we have a lot of people coming in from the Congo in Africa, and it's incredible. But you just say, why? Why are they doing it? And it has to be evil intention. And then you realize that so many other things that they do, like transgender operations, where prisoners, people that are being held as prisoners, if they request a transgender operation, they get it. Now, who would even believe this is possible? And she was one of the ones, Kamala. We don't have to talk about Joe, because Joe was overthrown. He was overthrown as president of the United States. First time that's happened. We call it a coup. I just say he was just overthrown. It's simpler. People say, what's a coup? A coup is you were overthrown. And I believe he likes me more than Kamala. But, you know, what do I know? How would I know that? But I think he likes me actually a little bit, about this much more than her. But they're having a lot of fighting going on. And they asked her a question the other day on one of these ridiculous shows. And they said, well, what would you have done different? What would you have done differently? You know, she complains what she's going to do. And I always say, why didn't she do it? It's so easy. You just sit back. Why didn't you do it? You had almost 4 years to do it. But she's worse than Biden, I'm telling you. He's more intelligent than her. Can you believe this? Can you believe? Okay? And it's not that I'm a fan, but I think what happened to him was terrible. He had 14 million votes. She came in last because she was the first one to drop out of the race. She dropped out. There were like 22 people, and she dropped out. And it's a terrible thing. I mean, you talk about a threat to democracy. That's a threat to democracy. But the biggest threat to democracy is incompetence. And we have incompetent people leading our country, and we have problems other than borders. We have the biggest problem is probably the possibility of World War III. And that would be a war like no other, with all of the weaponry that you have today. You have weapons the likes of which this world has never seen before. So we have people leading us that are not the right people. And, you know, we had no wars. I finished off ISIS. We had the best economy ever. We did great. And for the Hispanic Americans, because that's why we're here, I want to just say household income for Hispanic Americans. I asked them, give me some of the just basics, reached an all-time high. So your household income was the highest it ever was. The Hispanic American poverty hit the lowest rate ever. So the lowest rate of poverty, the highest rate of income. So far we're doing good, right? That's not bad. After that, what else? You almost don't have to say anything more. the household wealth of the median Hispanic family grew by 65%. Think of that one. Home ownership among Hispanic Americans reached the highest level ever by far, and we cut taxes and regulations for Hispanic-owned small businesses and people. And now we did this for everybody, and everybody did better, but Hispanic Americans did just right at the top. Now, let me tell you what is happening at the border, because it's affecting you probably more than anybody else. African Americans, Hispanic Americans, people are pouring in and taking your jobs. And your jobs are being taken, and that's all because of Kamala and Biden. And really, in this case, her, because he put her in charge of the border, and then it was 4 o'clock, and he went home and went to sleep. You know, that was it. He made her the border czar, right? Now she says she wasn't the border czar. And they come out with different excuses, and because there's no excuse for this. We have the worst border in the history of the world. There's never been a border in the history of the world like this. If it was a third world country, because they had no border like this, because they'd fight them off with sticks and stones if they had to. This is the worst ever in the history of the world, and we had the best ever in this country's history, and we had a strong border. We had great people. Tom Homan was one of my advisors, and Brandon Judd was unbelievable, and we have people today that are great. And, you know, the amazing thing, they want to do their job. They really want. It's easier for them not to do their job, I assume, but they want to do the job. They see what's coming in and what's happening. But from you heard the numbers from think of that family income median 65% increase. Who ever heard of a number like that? But it's being taken away from you by them because of the border, because people are going to come in and they're going to take your job, and that's what they're doing, and that's what's happening. And if you look at the numbers today, the numbers are way down from where they were. And for the African-American community, it's actually a step even worse. So I just want to let you know, and that's the way it is. She caused a tremendous inflation, $29,000 per family. Kamala launched a massive IRS initiative to take more tip money away. You know, no tax, right, on tips. And that was a big deal. And then she goes out a few weeks later, maybe a few months later, and she said, I have a surprise for you, no tax on tips. We sent her a MAGA cap. But she won't, remember, she won't be able to do it. Just like they were unable to fulfill, for 4 years, they said, we're going to cut the tuition, the debt on colleges and schools and all of this. We're going to cut the debt, student loans. We're going to cut them. We're going to give you. It failed. I mean, all that work, all that talk, it was all for nothing. It failed. And, you know, a lot of people had hopes, and it failed because they don't get done what they're supposed to get done. They get done nothing good for the country. The only thing they're successful at is wasting money on the Green New Scam. And you know the number, Bob, the actual number is $93 trillion. That's what they want. And this was done by AOC plus 3. I said, oh, did you study the environment? No. They never even studied it. They just come up. They want to do things like no more cows and no windows in buildings. They have some wonderful plans for this country. Honestly, they're crazy, and they're really hurting our country badly. But I just want to say it's been an honor. I've had such great support from the Hispanic community and from the black community. The highest level ever, and there are those that say we'll end up breaking the 50% mark, which is really an incredible when you think that 10 years ago or 6 years ago, and even when I first ran, you didn't know me very well. And you got to know me well. And the second, we did great in 2020. We did better in 2020, frankly, than we did in 2016. Much better. We got millions more votes. But we did very well with the Hispanic. And now we're doing record numbers. And I think we're going to have a tremendous election. I think we're going to have an election like no other. I think this is going to be the biggest and most important election in the history of the country. And a big beneficiary will be the people in this room. They've been just so great. You know, Hispanic people have tremendous. They say you can't generalize, but I think you can. They have wonderful entrepreneurship, and they have Oh, do they have you have such energy. Just ease up a little bit, okay? Ease up. No, you have great ambition, you have great energy, very smart, and you really do. It's like natural entrepreneurs. That's why the small businesses in the country, I mean, they are largely the number of Hispanic Americans operating small businesses and big businesses too, very big businesses, running them for stockholders. So it's an incredible group of people. It's an honor to have you on my side. We are getting numbers of Hispanic Americans that nobody ever thought possible. And we're up in all of the polls. Well, it looks like we're leading just about everywhere now. We're leading I think all of the swing states that came out this morning. We're leading all of the swing states. And part of that is, she can't answer questions. She doesn't know what the hell she's doing. We can't have that. We had that 4 years ago, and we had that for the last 4 years, and we can't do that anymore. We're not going to survive as a country. We're in very dangerous shape. We're in very bad shape as a country. You look at all of the things that are happening that are so bad, and it's just something we can't take. So we are going to be with you. You've been with me. Get out and vote. And again, November 5th, I believe, is going to go down as maybe the most important day, I hope, right, Mr. Congressman? But I hope it will, because it'll show what we do, but it'll be the most important day in the history of the country. And, I said that with 2016, and I meant it, but this blows it away, because 2016, we had problems, but we didn't have this kind of a problem. We have a problem of survival of our country, because we're run by very stupid and probably evil people, and we can't have it. So thank you very much, Bob. I hope that's a positive message. Is that a positive message? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let's make it clear to the Hispanic community that the Biden and Harris administration have killed our economy, destroyed our border. They have destroyed everything good that we have in our country, but they have not destroyed us. And we're going to give President Trump the biggest win in November. Hispanics are. Mr. President is going to have the biggest support any Republican president has ever had from us. I truly believe that. But what's most important for us is our values. And Kamala Harris is destroying our values of family, of faith. And if we want those values to live in our children and the second generation, it's important that we instill those values, but that we also elect those that represent our values. And that is President Donald Trump. I think it's important that we also give an opportunity to Captain Sam Brown to introduce himself. This race is very important for your state, so I want to give him an opportunity to say a few words. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making time out of your day to be here, but also thank you for running. I know it's a huge sacrifice, and thank you for everything you've done for our country. I would not be here if it wasn't because of men and women like you that served in our country. So thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you, President Trump, for being here, for demonstrating to the world just how important Nevada is, how important the Hispanic voters are, how important this community is. We're so grateful that you're with us today.
Thank you very much. Thanks, sir.
Now, look, success is not promised in life. Hardship is something that none of us can avoid. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the American dream. Because most of you know of me as a veteran, as someone who's put on the uniform, served, sacrificed for this country, and I was happy to do it. I was honored to do that. But like so many of us in this room, I've also got a story about pursuing the American dream. You see, after I recovered, and I had to figure out who I was outside of that uniform, I went back to school. I got an education around business. And just because you do those right things, you check those boxes, does not mean that you're going to find that success. And so in 2016, when President Trump was elected, and I was happy to be a proud President Trump supporter, over those next couple of years, with the optimism of seeing what he was doing for our country, lowering our energy costs, lowering unemployment, cutting taxes, we saw the border secured. We saw optimism. A hope for the American dream was something that we could all grab onto. It was at that time that I decided my next step in the American dream as a husband and a father with 3 school-aged children was to start my own business. But again, for those business owners out here in this room, we know that's not always easy. And my journey started working in a fulfillment center. When I walked in here today and I saw the racks up against the wall and the cardboard boxes and the pallets, I thought, gosh, it almost feels like home. Because for 6 months as I was starting my business, the business that provided pharmaceutical services to veterans when the VA hospital wasn't able to, I worked in a fulfillment center. I packed up those boxes. I loaded them onto the semi-truck trailers. I did that for 10-hour shifts 4 days a week. And I went home at night, had a meal with my family, and went to work on my business plan and getting things lined up and ready to go, and was eventually able to make that full transition to being a successful small business owner. And that is so important to all of us as Americans, all of us, that we have that opportunity. Again, it's not a promise that we have success, but an opportunity. And President Trump, as our president, and me being a small business owner while he was president, I was so compelled to fight for his re-election in 2020 that I did put aside some family time when I got done taking care of my affairs. And my son and I, my oldest son and I, would go out and knock doors for President Trump. 4 years ago, I was a happy volunteer. I see people out here in the crowd today who are volunteers. Beware. You might find yourself one day running for United States Senate too. But it was so worth fighting for what President Trump did for us, the way that he led for us. He couldn't guarantee us success, but he could help create a pathway for it. We saw him cut taxes. We saw him lower those energy costs. We saw optimism in our community. And what we have now is a story of all the wrong things going up and the right things going down. Our unemployment rate now here in Nevada is the second highest in the nation. Our housing costs are off the chart. The interest rates have gone so high that if I had to buy my home today that I bought 6 years ago, guys, I couldn't afford it. And I know a lot of you are in that same position. We have a number of people coming across this border illegally has gone through the roof. Criminals that have come across this border, including those who have committed murders, over 13,000. But what's been going down? Our take-home pay, the number of kids who can actually play sports. As I go through the community and I talk to folks, I've got parents who stop me and say, you know, we can no longer afford to even have our kids play sports. There's teachers who've told me they can't even send kids home with homework on paper because they can't afford the ink and the paper to send the kids home to be able to continue their education at home. The wrong things are going down. But while Jackie Rosen has been our senator, while she's voted 98% of the time with Biden and Harris, her net worth has gone up 61%. Can you imagine if your net worth had gone up 61% under the policies of this administration? And so let me tell you, there's people in your life that challenge you to be the best version of yourself. There's a couple in this room today. Congressman Wesley Hunt right here. He was an upperclassman of mine at West Point. He may have given me a hard time here or there, but he challenged me to be the best version of myself, to become the leader that I was able to grow into being. I see Pastor Jimmy Morales over here as well. He's challenged me to be the best version of myself, even throwing me behind the pulpit with 20 minutes notice to give us an entire sermon to his church one day. But President Trump, you challenge us all to be the best version of ourselves. President Trump, I have seen courage under fire. I have had to lead troops into the heart of fire. I have survived the very fire itself, and I found hope, frankly, when I had lost the will to live. When someone came running to me and they screamed out, "Sir, I've got you," there was nothing I could do for myself at that moment. But that action, it wasn't just words, it was action that saved my life. And President Trump, you represent not just words, but action to save the lives and provide hope for so many today. One last thing to the women here today and who are seeing this at home. Like my wife, like the wonderful First Lady, like so many of you moms and grandmas and sisters here, you will determine the outcome of this election. My wife challenged me to run. She said, "Sam, I know the man you are. President Trump needs you to back him up in the Senate." You women here today, you will determine this election. So let your voice be heard. Get out there, get your family to vote, get your neighbors to vote, get your children to vote, and let's provide President Trump the backup he needs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Brown. Well, we're all here to hear from these 6 great Hispanic Americans and to hear from their stories. I would like Lydia Dominguez to share your story with us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you to America's Future Tour for having me here. Thank you, Mr. President, for having me. It's a true honor to share my story, and my story echoes so many Latinos around the nation. I was born in Mexico and raised as an infant in the United States. And my mom is a high school graduate. My dad made it to the 6th grade. As he was a construction worker, and when I was 12, he passed away from cancer because of all the chemicals he had been exposed to as a farmer and construction worker. At the age of 14, I proudly became an American citizen, and you know, I continued, and at the age of 16 and 19, I had both of my kids, and they're right there in the stadium, right there, wave. Yeah. I'm so proud of them. I had both my boys at 16 and 19. So I decided to join the Air Force, and I joined proudly because I had grown up with a sense of service and sense of wanting to do more in my country. Under your administration, I was able to afford a home. I was able to buy my first home and save money, and it was the first time I'd been able to get ahead. And feeling like I'd always been behind, your administration was at the point where I was able to get ahead. Under the Biden administration, I was forced to take the COVID-19 vaccine, and I refused as a religious accommodation, and I was honorably discharged. And with that, most of my savings dwindled under the Biden-Harris economy, and I had found myself having to work 2 jobs, having to do rideshare and having to do graphic designing to make ends meet at that point. I was raised in a Democratic household. My values remained consistent. Mr. President, you were the first Republican president I voted for in 2016. I had never seen anyone articulate the way you did how great this country is and how much it's worth fighting for. You saw what it really was, and you want to protect it. Despite the economic struggles after leaving the Air Force, I decided to remain committed to my commitment of service, and now I'm running for Clark County School Board. And my story echoes so many other Hispanics. My mom had said we're a Democrat because we're poor, and the Republicans are rich, so we're not rich, so we're Democrat. And you know, even at a young age, I thought, but I want to be rich someday. How do I get there? And one of the things that resonates that a lot of Latinos experienced as well as I did is, and I'll say it in Spanish first, is my grandma would say, mija, te pueden quitar tu carro, te pueden quitar tu dinero en la banco, te pueden quitar tu casa, pero nunca te pueden quitar que está en tu mente. And she said, they can always take away your car, they can take away the money in your bank account, they can take away your house, but they can never take away what's in your mind. And so education was so important to me. Yeah, and I hold that with my children, I hold that in my community of service. And Mr. President, I support you 100%, and I know my Latino community, my Latino family supports you, and we have been struggling so hard under this Biden economy. We are under a Democratic diet right now, and I am tired of being on that diet.
Thank you very much. Great job. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Lydia, for sharing your story. Mr. President, Kamala Harris and the Democrat Party do not believe in parental rights. What do you say to parents like Lydia with their concerns?
Well, it is so, and you look at the school boards, what's happening. They're being treated like terrorists. I've never seen anything like it. And who would think that when I make speeches, if you would go back 10 years, you'd never even think, but you say, I stand for parental rights. Who would think you have to say that? You know, Bob, when that becomes a major portion of what you have to do, we're going to stick up for the parents, in other words, that they could come and take your child and do things to your child that nobody can believe they're allowed to do. Nobody can even believe it. And no, we're for parental rights. We're going to get those parental rights back stronger than ever before. Right?
Thank you, Mr. President. We have another amazing story coming from Brian Ursua. Please share with us your story.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to share how grateful I am to be here. And it's such an honor to be sitting here at the same table with President Trump. So,
thank you, Brian.
Yeah, I just want to start off by saying that I'm just a blue-collared, hard-working man. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. And what's important to me is your proposal on the no tax on overtime. I work in the trade show industry here in Las Vegas. I'm a Teamster journeyman and a steward, union steward, and we work very long hours. Most of the time, our overtime hours surpass our regular hours. And your proposal would help the Teamsters out tremendously, as well as other hardworking citizens. When you were in office, me and my wife, we had a pretty nice savings account. But with this current administration, my savings have been depleted. My wife and I have noticed that what we used to spend on groceries for a family of 6, it's the same amount that we spend on just the 2 of us. We're empty nesters, and we're proud of all our adult children. They've all moved out, and all of our children have roommates. They are unable to afford even renting on their own, not to mention achieving buying a home.
Right.
I remember when you were in office, the economy was booming. I knew a lot of people that were able to come out from underneath the government's thumb. I was able to introduce my friends to our real estate agent, and they were able to achieve the American dream. They were able to buy a home. Life was good when you were in office, and you didn't hear people yelling, defund the police. We had safe communities. Our country was safe. When you were in office, you showed your strength and achieved peace through strength with other countries. Your leadership trickled down into our communities, and we respected authority in one another. We need secure borders. Without borders, you have no country. And with the flood of illegal immigrants, this administration has no plan with no structure. And with no structure, you're bound to have chaos. And that makes for a perfect plan to distract the American public and to change the world into the world that we're living in today. These are the conversations we talk about at work. These are real people. I work with a lot of people of different nationalities and backgrounds, and I respect everyone's opinion. But I'm telling you, the majority of all the people that I talk to want you back in office. Us common folk just want peace, and we don't want to send billions of dollars abroad. We want America and Americans to come first. We want secure borders, safe cities, safety for our children, a better economy, and a better president than the one we've had to tolerate for the last 4 years. I believe in divine intervention, and I believe God protected you that day of that attempted assassination. And I truly do believe that the Lord isn't finished using you yet. You have a purpose here. Promises made, promises kept. I went to so many rallies of yours, and I can still hear you saying that. And I remember keeping your word. We love you, Mr. Trump. Keep doing what you do best and run this country the way this country needs to be led.
Thank you, Brian.
Trump 2024.
Thank you, Brian. Very nice.
Brian, you have an incredible story. Thank you for sharing. Mr. President, you have gotten a lot of support from unions, from Teamsters like Brian.
Right.
Why do you think that is?
Well, we know what's going to happen. Just as I was saying, unions are going to be very affected by all these people coming in, and we have no idea who they are, where they come from. We know nothing about them. They're unvetted, they're unchecked, and they're by the millions, and they're going to affect your Teamsters. And, you know, the Teamsters, as you know, the rank and file voted last week nationally, and I know you did locally, and I appreciate it. And I respect the Teamsters. I've used Teamsters to do a lot of buildings, the concrete. You know, they trucked it in, and I never had a problem. They're great. But we had a tremendous vote. Over 60% of the Teamsters voted, which was unheard of because it never happened before to a Republican. So if I were a Democrat, it would have had 105%, I think, based on that. But I know how hard you work, and I really appreciate your words, Brian, and you'll be very happy. You do have to be careful, and I told Sean O'Brien, you know Sean O'Brien, he's the boss, and he's great man. He's head of the Teamsters. I said, you have to be careful because you have people coming in by the millions, and many are not people that are supposed to be in this country, and they're going to be stealing your jobs, taking your jobs, and you're going to have a lot of you're going to have turmoil. You're going to have tremendous turmoil, and it's not fair to the people that have been here and great citizens and worked hard. So you see it happening already. It is happening, and it's happening right now, so we have to be careful. But that was beautiful. Thank you, Brian, very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Mr. President. Now let's hear from our small business owner, Elias Trujillo.
Well, I'm so honored to be here today. Never in my life did I see myself being here amongst any of you guys, you know, or having this opportunity. But I guess this was what America is, right? Everybody has the opportunity to do something. I come from an immigrant family. Back in '95, my parents came out to the U.S., landed in Utah. I have two brothers. We came here legally, you know, but we overstayed, and we were able to make life here in the United States. And my, it is funny. Parents came out to Las Vegas back in '99, so I consider myself from the Vegas community. Been here 25 plus years, done life here, did school and everything, you know. And in my head, I always had the legal status, you know, holding over my head, because you're somewhat limited to what you can do, to how much you can accomplish. And never let it get to me, you know, and I realized I had to move past it, you know, and make the best of my life, because I didn't choose to be here, but my parents felt it was a better opportunity for the family and for us as kids. So I became to love, you know, being out here in the U.S. Went through high school and everything, completed all of my school like I was supposed to, and didn't see myself continuing studying or pursuing any sort of career. But I knew deep inside that I could be an entrepreneur. I could, you know, break barriers and create something without the help of anyone, or, you know, and as I had that on my mind, I continued living life. And shortly right after high school, I met my beautiful wife, who's sitting down there, supporting like always. We have two kids, 12 years old and a 5-year-old. And in the midst of Trump's presidency is when I decided to go with entrepreneurship, build my first business, create more time for my family, better resources, income for my family, better future. I saw the opportunities as your presidency was on. I wasn't fully supportive when you ran for the first time. I learned to support and really see your path and how you were trying to guide us through a better future. Things were great up until COVID, I believe, is when things started to stall for our family, and like it did for everyone. I think it put a stall on our life in pursuing the dream that we were seeking of having our own business, generating wealth and a greater future for our family. So COVID shut down the business that we were starting, which was in the catering business, food truck. And in the midst of 2020, when things stalled, we said we got to continue. We cannot sit back and wait for someone to come save us or help us, So we went out and opened up a restaurant. In the midst of all the COVID regulations, all the changes that had happened, inflation, things started to change at that point, and we battled through. We're not thriving as we should. I think this last 4 years have been very difficult for small businesses, especially in the food industry, cost of goods, labor, all of the things that have changed, that weren't the same. So we've been able to still stay afloat, pushing to try to open more locations, to generate more revenue, to be able to still grow. But there's obviously limitations to what we can do, what's in our hands, our control. One thing that you guys have mentioned, Hispanics, they don't give up. They find a way. We try. We make it happen as much as we can, and I've done it many times, and I've had to do it many times. But I'm happy with the opportunity that Trump has again to run and hopefully get us back on track. I think there's room to make America greater. Some of the policies that you're proposing or that you've said, like the taxes on tips, services, things like that. I've worked jobs where people solely live off tips. That's majority of their income, and then it gets eaten out by their job because of the taxes and all that stuff. And it's money that they're earned and should rightfully go to them. So I think this is the beginning of the start for changing laws that can benefit the communities more, can benefit Hispanics, and not just Hispanics, but in general population. I think there's many changes that need to be made. We need to come back to the nuclear of our family. Our soul of the country should be based on that. The love of our family, the love for our children. Them trying to maintain their sanctity, their holiness as long as we can. That's the future that we have, and we can't let, ideas, people influence that. They're precious. So I believe we need to get back to that. I feel confident that you're on that page. You want that for the nation. You want that for people who have a belief in a higher power, a greater God. And if they don't, they should also be willingness and hopeful for a better future for their kids. Everyone should want the best for them. So there's many things that I think can be changed, and I don't foresee this current administration making those changes or taking us to a better future. I believe you are the best fit for helping us get there, and I hope that you can sit in the chair again.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. You are currently listening to the 45th. Some people say he might also be the 47th. You're listening to the Hispanic community talk to Donald J. Trump. And as you can hear, they are in support of this man right here. Let's get it.
Thank you very much. Beautiful. Very good. Thank you very much. Very nice.
Thank you, Elias. And I agree with you. I believe that the Hispanic values are what's going to save this country. I want to talk about the tax, no tax on tips. I was a server for many years. I understand the struggle of not wanting to report all the tips because we knew that we're going to get taxed. Mr. President, are you going to get the no tax on tips signed into law?
Yeah, I think we will. We had tremendous enthusiasm in Congress for it, even on both sides. They said that was a good idea. Nobody ever thought of it. I have another one. I was in Detroit the other day, and I said we're going to have deductibility of interest on car purchases, and the place went crazy. And top people on Wall Street, two top people, like the top people, when did you ever come up with that idea? And it was something that I just felt we have to bring back our car industry. We have other things even beyond that to bring it back, actually, but that was something. So we have the ideas with the no tax on tips. I was at my building, and a waitress came up, and she was complaining about the way they're harassing her. I said, on what? She said, tips. I said, really? Well, really? I never heard of this. And they said, no, it's terrible. They're actually passing new legislation to go after people on tips. I mean, really deep stuff. So I said, what do you think of the idea of no tax on tips? Because it just seems like very hard money to get for the government. And, maybe you should be entitled. And also, I think a big thing could be for you, but it could be for a lot of the people. You work overtime, no tax on overtime. And I think that's going to be good for the country. More people are going to work overtime. So we have these things. We'll get them done, and we'll get them approved in Congress. I've gotten pretty much everything I've wanted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, we want to hear from these three Hispanic Americans as well. We have a few minutes, but Ms. Linda Fornos would like to hear your story as well.
Thank you. It's a really honor for me to be here. And
you.
It's my third time sharing with you, Mr. Trump. And now I want to tell about my story. I'm an immigrant Latina who came from Nicaragua 16 years ago. I'm raised by two beautiful women, my mother and my grandma, who taught me values and taught me you have to fight for what you really want. You have to stand. You have to fight for your criteria and your opinion. And that's why I'm here. When I came to this beautiful country, I did things in the right way. And I have worked really hard raising my three kids. Actually, one of my kids, he was invited to be here, part of the panel, but he couldn't because he told me, Mom, it's my dream to meet Mr. President Trump, but if I go with him and I miss work, I'm going to be short in my paycheck. My paycheck. That is how sad it is, our economical situation, that we had to work really hard. In my house, we have three people working, three salaries, and having two jobs in order to support our economy in our house. And it's not just me, it's all the community, the Hispanic, that they are facing the same situation. What is frustrating is how Democrats who stands for Hispanic, that's what they say. We are here for Latino people. And I ask to everyone what they have done to us. Nothing. They have done nothing. And that's one of the reasons why the Latino community now stand for you, Mr. Trump. That's what they are, supporting you, and they want you back. It's not time to regret, because many people, they vote for Democrats, as I did. But now, I'm standing here, and I'm standing for all others who wants to be part of you, wants to be part of this American dream. And believe me, they are waiting for you to hold your hand.
The facts are the facts. The economy was better under this guy. The prices, everything you can hear. Because it's like you keep saying this guy is a con artist, is a bad person, is selfish, is this, is that. However, you didn't have all of this money going to, other countries. You didn't have all of this blowing up around the world. You had low gas prices, you had better economy, you had low interest rate mortgage rates. So there's nothing for you guys to say anymore. We are not buying all of those things you're gonna say because we have actually experienced this man in the White House. So it's like, what are you gonna say? You got nothing to say.
And they have the faith that you are going to bring America again as we are dreaming to have it.
Thank you very much. That's,
Thank you, Linda.
go ahead.
Iris Ramos Jones, we would love to hear your story. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is an honor to be here with you today. I am a first-generation immigrant from Ecuador. I came to this country 11 years ago. I became a citizen when you were president 5 years ago. Came with nothing, without being able to speak the language, and without knowing anybody here. And today, I'm sitting here with Mr. President Trump. Cameron, that's my daughter. When you and mommy used to sleep on the mattress on the floor, I never thought this was going to be possible. This is only possible here in America. And that is why you got to defend this country until the end. And that's why you have to love this country unapologetically, as I do. There is only one America. Do not take it for granted. The ones that have come from different countries know how bad it can be. How bad it can be if we do not defend our freedom. How bad it can be when they want to silence us. How bad it can be when we lose our rights. And when we do not defend our values. Values that were taught by our parents and our abuelitas. I'm proud to be part of a community that work hard every day. People of faith, people that in today's economy are suffering. They have to have 2 or 3 jobs to meet their needs. We immigrant Hispanics have already made the sacrifices by leaving our countries, leaving our families, leaving everything that we know behind. We have nothing to lose, and we do see this country with a lot of hope, hope that you gave us, and that we hope to restore it. We're willing to learn and embrace those opportunities because we are survivors. We take risks. We get things done when we do have the opportunities, but unfortunately, opportunities in today's America are lost. In the last 4 years, they have proved that they want to divide and bully those who don't think like them. They know the power of Latinos, and they are only using us for political purposes. In the last 4 years, they have proved that they do not care about us. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Iris. Mr. President, really quick, what do you say to those who immigrated here to this country the right way? What do you say to those people that are here in this country?
So you have a lot of people that came in and they went through 10, 12 years of work, and I think they're being very unfairly treated. They've worked so hard, and they're so proud, and they love the country. And we have people coming in, many people coming in and do a good job, and many people shouldn't be on that line because they're dangerous people. We have a lot of dangerous people. And we're going to take care. We want, just so we understand, we want to have strong borders, but we want people to come into our country legally, and it'll happen. We're going to have a lot of people come in, but they're going to come in legally, and that's the way it has to be done. We all know that. I think everybody knows that around the table.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rafael Arroyo, would you please share your story with us as well?
Yes, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you, Mr. President, for doing this and taking the time out to talk to the Hispanic community. So I was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and I moved here. We got some Puerto Ricans back there, and I moved here when I was 6 with my family, and I started my business in 2008, right in the middle of a recession, as they say. 23 years old. My business is called Smog Plus DMV Services, and we do emissions testing here in town, and then we go to the DMV for people that are working or they don't have the chance to go because they're out there providing for their families. And I know everybody also loves going to the DMV, right? It's the favorite place. So, but about 2 months after I started my business, I had a detective come in, gun and a badge and everything. He said, "Hey, you can't really do this business." And that was my first interaction with government as a business owner. And that's when I learned, if you don't get involved with government, the government's going to get involved with you. And a couple of back and forth for a few months, and eventually said, you know what, you're right. The law doesn't say that you can't do this business. So I was able to continue. But instead of encouraging innovation, the default government position is usually to shut it down. So as I continued over the years, I dealt with obstacle after obstacle, policies that weren't business friendly, regulations that didn't make any sense. At one point, I had a meeting with some government officials, and they said, we're going to make this policy change, and if you don't like it, change the law. So I had to get involved. I got involved with state legislators, and it took me 1 year and 4 months, but eventually we changed the law. And,
thank you, Rafael.
So, I'm not a person who complains and just stands around, right? I put myself out there to fight for what's right, and I really care about our state and all my fellow small business owners and all my Hispanic community. And I know from firsthand experience how important it is to have elected officials that understand business and care about encouraging growth. And I feel like we have a governor here, and Governor Lombardo, who stresses that Nevada is open for business. And but the issue is he's going to need help. And today, for me, some parts that are critical to my business are double and triple the price than they were 4 years ago. And Mr. President, I know you're a businessman. You know how hard that is to see costs double and triple, and what that does to your bottom line, what that does to your employees, what that does to your customers. And as a Hispanic business owner, father of 4, my family's right over there, sitting down. And, it's tough right now. It's really tough right now. And what I'm doing is I'm paying attention to the policies, and I'm not paying attention to the media hype. And I recommend that everybody else do the same. And, the issues that really affect us are gas prices, groceries, the cost of supplies, because at the end of the day, we just want to provide for our families. So, Mr. President, I want to know what can be done to, as an elected official at the federal level, to deal with this inefficiency in government, this bureaucracy that small business owners have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And, thank you again for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, and it's a great story, actually, but big thing with you is going to be the cost of energy, very big thing, and we're going to get that down by 50% within the first years. We have, I say it all the time, more liquid gold. You've heard me say it. Oil and gas. We have more than any other country in the world, including Saudi Arabia, including Russia, and we don't use it to the extent that we can. And the problem is your prices are too high. I mean, it's not a question of inflation anymore. They've already done the damage. The damage has been done. You have things that are costing 50, 60, 70% more than they were 3 years ago. And we're going to get your energy costs down by 50% within the first 12 months. And when that happens, everything's going to follow it. And I think you're going to be in very good shape. Very good story, though. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Kamala Harris is telling Hispanic Americans that Mr. President is against us. Clearly, he's for us. And it's going to take all of us to rise up and speak up. We will give President Trump the biggest win in November, but it's going to take all of us to rise up, get out to vote. I want y'all to act like we're 50 points down. We got to get our friends and family out to vote. This is the most important election of our lifetime. The future of our children, the future of our grandchildren is in your hands. I believe in the American dream. Not only am I the American dream, so are you. You are the American dream, and the American dream is worth fighting for, but it's going to take all of you to rise up. This isn't just about us here in this table. It's about you as well. You need to take this election very personal because the future of our country is at stake, and it's in your hands. So let's give President Trump the biggest win in November.
Thank you for tuning into the live show one more time. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. You know what time it is. God bless you guys, man. Okay, you heard the Latinos talk about the former president. That is the facts right there. All right, so the legendary 45th talks about the Biden-Harris, and some people are calling it Harris-Biden, whatever you guys call it. Mean hurricane response. Let's listen.
So how are you feeling? We're just a few weeks away, 20 plus days away from the election. How do you feel about the race?
I feel great. We're leading in all swing states. We're leading mostly in nationals, I think. You know, I'm a believer in polls. Some of them are fake, like a lot of writers. But I'm a believer in polls, and we're leading in just about every swing state. I think we're leading now in every swing state. And she can't talk. There's something wrong with the candidate, but I'll take it. But we have, I think we're doing very well, yeah.
What do you want to say to those voters out there who might be undecided, who don't know what they're going to do yet?
Well, I think we're going to have a lot of votes. We have something sort of special going on. We have tremendous support. They're so tired of seeing what's happened to this country. They're so tired of seeing the incompetence, seeing the border. And I think the border is maybe a bigger deal than even inflation. Inflation is a massive word. The bad economy is massive. The inflation made the economy bad. It made it impossible for people. But I almost think that when they see millions of people coming into our country, 13,099 murderers, many of them murdered more than one person. When they see that, I actually think I think the border is a bigger issue than even the economy. Those are the two big issues.
It's had such an impact, the open border.
And the other issue that's really big, I think, is how badly they've done with North Carolina, parts of Georgia. When you look at what's happened, and Florida, we'll see what's happening there. I think we got a little bit lucky in the sense that it was bad, but it wasn't as bad as they thought. And a lot of governors have done a good job, but the response from the White House has been absolutely terrible. Her response has been terrible. So bad that they didn't even want, I see Ron didn't want her in Florida, said, just don't even come here. So I think we're doing really well, yeah.
And of course, President Biden is blaming you for this bad response to these hurricanes, and the White House is calling it all misinformation.
They blame me for everything, and it's okay. When you look at our numbers, when you look at our economy, when you look at our job numbers, every single chart that you put up, we beat them by numbers that nobody's ever seen. We had the best economy in history. We had the best job numbers in history, and we had the best border in history. We rebuilt the military, and then he gave away a lot of it to the Afghans. If he gave it to, the Taliban, I think in the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And then when you think about it, I think Putin really just said, hey, this is a good time because these people are incompetent. Putin would never have gone into Ukraine. October 7th would have never happened. And you know what else? Inflation wouldn't have happened.
Do you believe that they used money from FEMA and gave it to the illegal immigrants? Because the White House is saying that that was misinformation as well.
No, it came out from there, and everybody knew it, and it was released from them. Then all of a sudden, a week later, they come out with a different scenario. And they have so many different pots of money. They just, it just melds. Nobody knows it. Nobody has any idea. That group has no idea what's happening. Look, it's the worst president and the worst vice president in the history of our country. They're horrible. And he can't stand her for one simple reason. She overthrew him. But she didn't do it. The party did. Call it the deep state, whatever it is, but the party did it. And it was really a coup. And he is a very angry guy. And actually, I think he looks better now because now we're comparing him to her. And for the first time, he looks a little bit better. But he's a very angry guy. Look, he got 14, I'm not a fan, but he got 14 million votes. She got no votes. She never made it to Iowa. She was the first one out of 22 people running. She was the first one to drop out. We seem to be up in the swing states and every.
One thing all of us have to agree upon is, don't forget, this man is 78 years old. He is more active than any of the candidates put together. He's been doing 2 rallies a day. He was in Pennsylvania, he did 2 rallies. Nevada, 2. He's just doing 2 rallies most days. He's been active. Like, how is this man 78 years old? Man, double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel, man.
One of them. And it doesn't matter. Look, I've worked 32 days in a row, and we have another 25. And I intend to work every one of them. I'm not going to take days off. Let's take a little vacation, everybody, right? We're running to save our country, so we're not going to be taking any vacation. We had such a day a little while ago in Butler. You saw that we had 101,000 people show up. 101,000 people. A tribute to Corey, the firefighter, and a tribute to a lot of things. And it was an amazing, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it, actually.
Well, the pictures were incredible. Are you able to register some of those people to vote?
Yeah.
Are you getting those ballots in the boxes?
We do. We register a lot of people when we do rallies and when we do things like that. And we have the endorsement of Elon, as you know, Elon Musk, who's great. He's a great guy. He had such a good time. He put the black hat on. I didn't even...
Dark MAGA.
He calls it Dark MAGA. How cool is that, right? He calls it dark. He's a great guy. But he's given us a really powerful endorsement. He's out campaigning in Pennsylvania today. He's actually campaigning because he says if we don't win, we're not going to have a country.
He said this will be the last election if Donald Trump doesn't win. He's very worried about freedom of speech, censorship.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can do about that?
Well, I think that we just have to win. The only thing you can do is to win. No, these are bad people. And they're surrounded by very bad people. I think they're surrounded by much worse people than they are. Joe didn't really know too much about where he was, and Kamala's worse than him. Joe is much more competent than her.
Gallup polling says only 57% of Americans are very or somewhat confident that their votes this year will be accurately cast and counted.
Well, probably
the
right.
percentage who say they are not at all confident in the vote is now 19%. It was 6% in 2008.
I don't feel confident. When you have mail-in voting, Jimmy Carter had a commission on it. Nobody does mail-in voting now. You look at other countries, France, they go to paper ballots. France had it, and they had a lot of problems.
But you don't want to discourage people from mail-in voting.
No, I don't. Look, we have to win the election, then we have to really fix this whole thing because you need borders. I built 571 miles of wall, and they sold the wall for 5 cents on the dollar. It's very expensive. It's exactly what Border Patrol wanted. They sold the wall for 5 cents on the dollar. And I said, they want open borders. They want open borders, and they're always going to want. That's the $64,000 question. Why? I have no idea. Maybe they hate our country.
One of the elements of the border has brought in Tren de Aragua, this Venezuelan gang, quite dangerous. You told us about this.
Not quite. You could take the word, it's just pure dangerous. They're evil.
And you told us.
Cents on the dollar. It's very expensive. It's exactly what Border Patrol wanted. They sold the wall for 5 cents on the dollar. And I said, they want open borders. They want open borders. And they're always going to want, and she's always going to want open borders. That's the $64,000 question. Why? I have no idea. Maybe they hate our country.
One of the elements of the border has brought in Tren de Aragua, this Venezuelan gang, quite dangerous. You told us about this.
Not quite. You could take the word, it's just pure dangerous. They're evil.
And you told us this back in 2015 and 2016, that Venezuela was emptying their prisons and they were coming here, and you were mocked for it. How did you know back then that these Venezuelan gangs were coming to America?
Common sense. It's just common sense. If I'm running Venezuela like they're gentleman who's becoming very rich because we're buying oil from Venezuela. You can believe this? We have more liquid gold under our feet than anybody else, and we're buying oil from Venezuela. He's emptying out his prisons, but he's not the only one. It's not Venezuela. It's everyone all over the world. The Congo in Africa, we've taken in hundreds of people from their prisons. The Congo, all the way in Africa. Many, many countries. The Middle East, we're taking in massive numbers of people and many terrorists, and they're coming into our country, and they're Middle Eastern terrorists. And from Asia, we're taking in, and a lot from South America.
There was an Afghan refugee charged with plotting U.S. Election Day massacre.
Nothing surprises.
What about that, though? Are you expecting chaos on Election Day?
No, I don't think so. Not from the side that votes for Trump.
But I'm just wondering if these outside agitators will start up on Election Day. Let's say you win. I mean, let's remember, you've got 50,000 Chinese nationals in this country in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
You've got people on the terrorist watch list, 350 in the last couple of years. You've got, like you said, 13,000 murderers and 15,000 rapists.
Right.
What are you expecting? Joe Biden said he doesn't think it's going to be a peaceful Election Day.
Well, he doesn't have any idea what's happening in all fairness. He spends most of his day sleeping. I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of Election Day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
I'm Steve Ducey. I'm Brad.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. Thank you. Of course, my internet is slow because I'm using my mobile hotspot. Like you all know, or some of you that follow me consistently, my home was affected by Hurricane Helen because I live in East Georgia and we were affected heavily. We didn't have electricity for 10 days. And still yet, the home internet is not on. So I'm using my mobile hotspot like I mentioned. So hopefully you guys can hear and, see me. All right, let's listen to another one. Let's go.
It hasn't even been 1 week since radio host Charlemagne the God told his audience that Donald Trump is beating Kamala Harris in the 2024 messaging war.
Listen to a lot of reporters and they'll be talking to Trump or J.D. Vance and they'll be talking to them about things that are happening right here in America. Always America first. But then, you go to Tim Walz and they're asking him about geopolitical politics. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times that makes them sound, very out of touch. When you hear the Vances and the Trumps talking about what's happening here at home and saying things like America first and make America great again, that messaging sometimes resonates a lot more.
Well, Harris is going to try and change his mind when she appears on his show, The Breakfast Club, this coming Tuesday. She's making a campaign stop in Detroit to announce economic proposals for Black Americans. Recent polling from the New York Times shows Black support for Democrats are slipping significantly since the 2016 election. Harris is hoping the recent support from former President Obama will help her on that front, as she sets her vice presidential nominee, Governor Tim Walz, on the case to win back the male vote, starting with this Minnesota hunting trip earlier today. I don't know, Sean. I mean, I was seeing, Tim Walz out there. He was on his pheasant hunting trip. We also have, I think, did you see the Kamala Harris, the Real Men for Kamala Harris, the new ad? Take a look. Let me see if this is going to get your vote. Oh. No, you know what? We don't have that. But anyways, I saw it. And what they're really trying to do right now, we're starting to see that Donald Trump is leading in the polls by double digits, by about 11% when it comes to the male vote. So Harris and Walz are out there and they're trying to get the male vote.
So you have Democrats who have demonized the men in America, calling them toxic masculinity. And guess what? They don't vote for you when you demonize them like that. Tim Walz, Tampon Tim, with a gun and some blazed orange on going pheasant hunting, is not going to work at all. People in Minnesota have moved to Wisconsin. They've lost a number of their residents because his policies have been so bad. But just going back to what Charlemagne the God is hoping that I think Kamala Harris will bring to the table when she visits next week is the fact that the economic proposals are going to be no economic proposals at all. What they're going to actually do is go, this is Democrat classic. I'm going to offer you giveaways. I'm going to offer you freebies. I'm going to give stuff away. I'm going to be like Oprah. You get a car and you get a car and you get a free this. That's all they can do. But to lower prices, there'll be nothing that Kamala Harris can talk about because she hasn't since she's been in this race.
Well, and Griff, Kamala Harris, they're actually being very clear about this. They're saying that she's going on Charlemagne the God not to talk about, Black Americans in general. She's going to talk about her economic plan and how it is going to help Black Americans. If you remember in 2020, you had Biden who said, if you don't know if you're voting for me or President Trump, then you ain't Black. But that is not why, which obviously was very bizarre. But Kamala Harris is going on this podcast to strictly speak about her economic plan. And that's what we've been saying she needs to do.
Yeah, I think the New York Times polling today is pretty significant, Nicole, because when you looked at 2016, the Democrats had 92% of the Black vote. It's down to 78%. They're clearly drifting. And in that article, they quote a 63-year-old Black man that owns a business that said, hey, I've heard the racist things they say about Trump, but he's for the country. He's for the country. That's the quote he gave, and it really cuts through why Democrats are bleeding voters like that man. But can I just go back for a second to the hunting thing? Because, Sean, you're from the land of hunting. He walks around in a field in an orange jacket. He never fired the gun. The whole group allegedly shot one bird, but they couldn't find the carcass, and they've got dogs. These aren't just friendly pet dogs. These are skilled dogs. If you've ever been pheasant hunting, you go out in a field where you know it's been baited for pheasant, throw a bag down, the dogs mark it, it pops up, and you shoot it. Like, did it really affect male voters? Did he never fired the gun and they never shot any birds?
I think these campaigns are a little bit of a bust. But Lisa, the Washington Post brings up a very interesting point. So we know that Donald Trump is beating Kamala Harris by 11 points with males. But the Washington Post is saying, is the Trump campaign's male-dominated culture losing women votes?
Well, so no, because I think that what they can do, I still think there's a lot of opportunity for Donald Trump and J.D. Vance to bring up the numbers with female voters, particularly on the economy, because you look at that's the number one issue for men or for women. And so I think that's an area where they can get more women to come to their side. But regarding the challenges with male voters, I mean, Tampon 10 brings testosterone to the ticket in name only, right? And I guess Kamala Harris could probably start identifying as a man if she wanted. But I don't think that the reason why men are rejecting Kamala Harris has anything to do with the fact she's a woman. We've got plenty of governors, both in blue states and red states, that are women. There are plenty of female leaders. I think the issue for Kamala Harris is sort of the lack of leadership and the perception of the lack of leadership. If you dive into that New York Times poll that was referenced earlier, Trump beats Kamala Harris by 20% on who they view as a strong leader. And so I think that's the issue for Kamala Harris, is men just view her as weak and ineffective. And I don't think that's because she's a woman. I just think that's because she's Kamala Harris.
Well, when former President Trump was asked about female voters, this is what he had to say from Aurora, Colorado.
I'm going to be a protector. I said, I think we're doing very well with women. We're doing great in the polls. We're winning in all of the polls, just about. But somebody said, women love my policy, but they don't like me. I think they do like me. I'll tell you what. So they said, and I said a week ago, I said, I think women like me because I will be your protector, and I protected you for 4 years.
Well, 24 days until the election, and women's reproductive rights, IVF, all of that is on the ballots, and that does galvanize voters. So we're going to be hearing more from former President Trump this week. If you tune in to the Faulkner Focus this Wednesday, Harris Faulkner is going to host a Trump town hall with, get this, an all-female audience. Everyone's going to be asking questions. It begins at 11 a.m. Eastern, so be sure to tune in for that.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
Ladies and gentlemen, the momentum is getting higher and higher and higher. This is just amazing, y'all. This is amazing. The momentum keeps getting higher.
If you're not going to rely on us as the currency of choice, then you are not going to be able to do business in the United States. You know what they're going to say? I love the dollar very much, every single one of them, because we are losing that. You know, China is trying to take that away from us. And I'll say, by the way, I'll say the same thing to China. Like I put a 27.5% tariff on cars from China. So they haven't been able to pillage our country and close up our factories and lose our jobs. Otherwise, they'd be selling cars in here like hotcakes. And if you take a look at what they're doing to Europe, China is destroying the automobile business of Europe.
So I'm just trying to understand how you're going to pay for all of this no tax on stuff. And you said that there's a lot of fat in government
growth.
that you're going to save.
No, I said,
money.
I gave you an answer, growth. We're going to grow at a level that you've never seen before.
Okay.
And we're going to have tremendous jobs, and we're going to have companies coming in left and right, and they're going to be building factories. They're going to take over empty hulks that are all over the place from companies that left.
But you've also said that there's a lot of fat in government that you would want to slim down.
Incredible fat. So
what agencies would you want to shut down?
Well, let me have you ask another person that, because I'm going to have Elon Musk. He is dying to do this. You know, he's a great business guy, actually. You think of him for science and rockets, and every time I think he's telling me about a new screw that was developed, he's developed a new screw. Screws are difficult, and it's made out of titanium, and it's so exciting. But you know what? He's a great business guy, and he's a great cost cutter. You've seen that. And he said, I could cut costs without affecting anybody.
So he will be in the cabinet?
Not in the cabinet. He doesn't want to be in the cabinet. He just wants to be in charge of cost cutting. We'll have a new position, Secretary of Cost Cutting, okay? Elon wants to do that. And we have incredible people. He's running a big business. You know, he can't just say, I think I'll go into the cabinet. You know, other people can. He can't. But Elon's a little bit different in that sense. And besides that, I want him to send the rocket up to Mars. He said, he's made me a promise. He'll get to Mars before the end of my administration, which will be long before, hopefully, China or Russia. I created a Space Force. First time that's been done since the Air Force. Air Force was the last. It was 81 years ago. And I did Space Force. And when Biden heard, he laughed. He thought it was so funny. He didn't understand. And we tried to end it. And the military went down on him. You wouldn't believe it. It's now going to be one of our most important things. We were getting killed in space by China and by Russia. And now we're leaving in space.
Coming up just moments ago, Elon Musk's SpaceX successfully launched the Starship rocket as Musk continues to be at the forefront of America's space exploration. Watch this.
We have liftoff.
Coming up.
I'm Steve Doocy.
And to even think about it, this man was one of the first people to start Space Force. What? That's a big deal, y'all. All right, we've listened to Fox. We're going to go back there, but let's go to CNN and see what they're talking about concerning what Obama said about African-American men. Let's hear.
Is Obama in the wrong here with how he's talking about black men in particular and singling them out in this way?
Yeah, let's start from here. He is still the greatest living retail politician. He's objectively a top 15 president, but even he can swing and miss sometimes. And here he swung and missed. Here's what he did. Harris has been very strategic about when and how she's spoken about gender and race. And he stepped on that, and when she hasn't spoken about it, he stepped on that message. And I think also with those comments, and there's more to this, but let me just start with this, is that he forgets, at least in that moment, that she doesn't get the benefit of being a historic first the way he did. She's a historic first woman if she wins.
Maybe that's part of the problem, that's what he's saying. Why doesn't she get the benefit?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we have to remember that this is a thing, like Barack Obama has a history of kind of chastising specifically black men. And like the question is whether what he said is relevant, right? Because there are a few black men, like there are a few white men who are more conservative than black women, and more white men are conservative than white women. But the point is, does this work, right? And there's no evidence that it's true or that it works. And he doesn't do that with, like, you've never heard him say, why don't you white women stop being racist and vote for me? Or Kamala Harris, or they don't talk to Hispanic voters or LGBTQ voters. It's only specifically black men that he takes this tact
Why?
that doesn't work.
Why do you think that is?
Because you know why.
No,
Because
tell me.
The second most loyal, the most progressive group of men on the planet, they don't care about. They assume that they have their vote and they don't have to do anything for it. And the point of this is that if you don't vote for Kamala Harris and you're a black man, something must be wrong with you. That is the subtext of everything that they're saying.
Well, this is what I would say to this, because I was there when the NABJ interviewed Kamala Harris in Philadelphia, and what Kamala Harris said then was that you asked that question with the assumption that black men are in somebody's pocket. You can't make that assumption. Exactly. Black men are just like any other group. They have their interests, and I'm working to get their vote. I don't expect to get it because I am black. I am working to get their vote. And that is what she said. And so I think we have to focus on what she said about black men. And I think we also have to focus on the fact that most black men are going to vote for Kamala Harris anyway. That is the reality. But I think that in talking to black people every day, which I do as a radio host, I've heard some black men say, I'm not voting for her because she is a woman. I have heard that. And I think that is reprehensible. Okay. I got to be honest.
Okay, so he's heard it. I mean, are we, when I say we, I mean the collective we as the country, afraid to just talk about a thing?
I think
is
you can
Obama
talk
saying,
about it, but if you
calling
summon Barack Obama to fix a problem, you have to wonder if this fixes a problem. If I am interested in getting Kamala Harris elected, then I am upset because he hurt the strategy that she was employing to win.
Well, I think part of what has to happen, though, is that you have to have that conversation in private. There are some things you talk about in the barbershop when there's no cameras, right? There's some things that you talk about at home. There's some things that are family business, and I think the mistake that Barack Obama made was to take family business in the street.
I didn't have a problem. Let me let Coleman in there.
Shaming voters is a terrible idea. It was bad when Hillary Clinton did it with deplorables. It was bad when Mitt Romney did it on the eve of the election. Even if there's a grain of truth to it and there's the occasional radio caller that's going to admit to that sentiment, let's actually look at the fact that Biden was struggling with black voters, and that was a topic of conversation over and over again. So it's not about sexism.
Let's hold on one second. Let me take a look at this. Let's take a look at the numbers, because I think just to see what we're talking about here. There's been a progressive decline in overall support among black men and, to a lesser degree, black women for the Democratic nominee. Biden was doing better among black men than Harris appears to be right now, based on some of the better polling that looks at these demographics. So I guess the other part of this is, you're talking about keep the business private. You're saying he's messing up the strategy, but the numbers are the numbers. And he's trying to fix a numerical problem that she has, a math problem that she has.
Right. I agree with most of what you were saying, Solomon. I don't think the problem is that he spoke it out loud. I think the problem is that he singled out black men. In other words, there is a sexism component to this race. There was a sexism component to the Hillary Clinton-Donald Trump race. Right, if Trump wins, he will have only ever beaten women. I can't give you a number, but sexism is in the mix here. But it's not black men specifically. I think it's men, not black men. And that, I think, is part of where Obama went wrong.
And I think we also have to look at numbers and actual statistics, right? Because all of those reliable polling has a small demographic of black men. You're talking about most of them poll at most 40, 50 black men, right?
Well, I don't think in this particular case, just to be clear about what we were looking at there, the exit polls were from the actual elections that we had. And then the Pew polling, Pew looks more closely at specific demographics. Right. And they do that in a way that we, as a news organization, deem to be a reliable way of looking at this. Not every poll is reliable, but we think this one is.
And when you remember now, we had the same conversation 2 years ago about Stacey Abrams. Why won't black men support Stacey Abrams? And after the election was over, we saw the numbers, and black men in Georgia, where I live, supported Stacey Abrams at higher rates than they supported Biden. So we have this narrative, and then you have the truth, and you have this conjecture and
but
this
the candidates
anecdotal
are
evidence.
speaking with their actions. Kamala Harris next week is sitting down with Charlemagne the God to talk to black men. They're being explicit about it.
And she should.
But,
Yeah.
right. So let me play for you what happened on Charlemagne's show yesterday when they were talking about a call that they'd received from a black man in Florida. This was kind of in the context of the storms, but they played the call. Listen.
It don't matter what they is, Democrat, Republican, they all treason, man. They all about money, bro. None of these people care about American people, bro. This shit hurt, bro. This shit hurt, bro. People wake up every day just want to live their life, bro. And you got these greedy snakes, man. You got these greedy snakes call themselves government service people, bro. And they don't give a damn.
Yeah.
And the thing about that call was that, they said it's kind of representative of what they hear often on that show, which is why she's going there.
Well, I think that you have people who are angry. I think that you have people who are planted. I think that you have people who are sent to troll. I think that you have people who are sent with a specific message to deliver to black people. And you see it online. I hear it on the radio. I see it on social media. I see it on our Facebook feed as we're doing our show. And so I think some of that is real, and I think some of it is manufactured. I think some of it is performative. But I do think that there are black men at two ends of the spectrum. There's the old black man that's going to say, well, I'm not going to vote for a woman because the Bible says men should be in charge, right? There's that guy. But then there's the young black man who only gets his news from social media and nowhere else. And so he's not watching us. He's not listening. He's not reading me or Michael. He's not reading David. He's not doing any of that. His news comes from social media. And so he has a specific point of view and is likely to believe conspiracy theories. The question is, do people who vote, are they on social media or are they on Social Security? I think they're on Social Security.
Well, I think that the problem is that no one's disputing that this government and this country doesn't treat that they treat black men okay, or that we don't have a gripe with either party, right? Because if you talk to black people privately, they will have a gripe with the Democratic Party. The point is, how do you fix it? And why don't you approach that solution the same way you approach the solution with white people and white women who don't vote Democratic, the white men who don't vote Democrat, the Hispanics who don't vote? Why do you take the specific tact for one demographic and not the entire political strategy that you use for everyone else?
I think the answer is what you said a minute ago, which is that Democrats have to get out of the habit of taking the black vote for granted. Yeah, Trump got 19% of black men, 12% of black people last time around. Like, it's going to be a bigger number this time. Adapt to that. Don't just assume.
I think we're talking a lot about race, but in many ways, gender is the key variable here, because even if you look at white people, the Republican Party has been getting a higher and higher share of the male vote. The parties have become more gendered overall, and it's true of Hispanics. Yeah. So what we're seeing among black people is similar to the trends we're seeing among other races. So that's the key question: is why are the parties getting more gendered?
Well, I think the AP did a poll last month in the middle of the month, and what they found was that the overwhelming majority of black voters, whether they are male or female, favor Kamala Harris over Donald Trump. They had a positive view of her, they had a negative view of him, and there wasn't much difference between men and women. So I think that when we're talking about this, we're talking about people who are loud and wrong. I think that's what's happening, is that we hear these voices, they're very loud, and we think that there are more of them than there are. And we'll see when the election happens.
Of course, we're still listening. Go.
Well, all new this morning, a senior aide tells CNN that Kamala Harris's campaign will release a report today detailing her medical history and health information. Almost a year ago, former President Donald Trump posted a letter from his doctor saying his health was excellent, but has never released his actual medical records. And just in, new polling from the New York Times and Siena College. Among black likely voters, a major divide. Harris leads Trump 78% to 15%.
Trump visited Nevada last night, where he continued to stoke anti-immigrant fears, similar to what he said earlier in the day in Colorado.
You can't live like this. You can't live with these people. These are stone cold killers. You could be walking down the street with your husband. You'll both be dead. They won't even remember they did it the following morning. You can't live like this. So I hope that Colorado will show a tremendous protest vote for what they did to try and keep me off the ballot, and more importantly, for what they have done to the fabric of your culture.
Former State Rep Sean.
President Harris, she took a more unifying tone in Arizona. She spoke to a group of Republican supporters. She said she plans to create a bipartisan council of advisors for policy feedback if she is elected. Now, both candidates are back on the trail this weekend. Former President Trump rallying in California today, while Vice President Harris plans to visit North Carolina tomorrow. Axios national political reporter Sophia Kai joins us now. Good to have you. Let's start with this new poll just out in the last minutes that shows among black voters, Harris is at 78%. However, President Biden was at 87% in the exit polls from 2020. So what's the work that the Harris campaign is doing to at least get close to that number from Biden in 2020?
Yeah, like 78% sounds like a high number, but may not be high enough for Kamala Harris. And, you see her, here's her issue, right? She's got to have the base voters, which includes black voters in Detroit, black voters in Philly, black voters in Wisconsin. And she really needs those voters at the same time that she needs to get some of those swing voters, the suburban voters, voters who are on the edge, the protest Trump voters. So she's got to do these two things at the same time, and she's really only got like 3 weeks left.
You heard former President Trump there in Aurora, Colorado. He's name-checked Aurora several times over the last several years, claiming that Venezuelan gangs have overtaken the city. This is an immigration message. I think we have more to listen to here, so let's play a bit of it.
In Aurora, multiple apartment complexes have been taken over by the savage Venezuela prison gang known as Tren de Aragua. Or is your law enforcement and law enforcement all over the world? They know them all over the world. They're a savage gang, one of the worst in the world. And they're getting bigger all the time because of our stupidity.
Sophia, voters say that the economy is the most important issue. Why is he closing out the campaign on immigration instead?
He believes that he won in 2016, the first time around, on immigration. And, this time he believes it's the issue as well. I mean, why is he going to deep blue states? California, he's going to Coachella, California, and why was he in Colorado? I mean, he doesn't need to be there, and it's very unconventional for a major party candidate to be in those states, frankly, a couple weeks before the election. But he's messaging with his feet, and his language is growing more and more extreme. He's talking about how the country is being occupied, Aurora being taken over. Aurora is not being taken over. In fact, he's put Republican local officials in the very tough spot of having to come out and say, our city is not being taken over.
Yeah,
right? I mean, there was a little
Republican mayor said that it was grossly exaggerated. Continue your point there.
Yeah, exactly. And so they've come out and have to say, look, we are a vibrant city. We are not being taken over. Unfortunately, Trump is willing to use a city as a backdrop and as a result cause a lot of chaos to the city.
Let's talk about the vice president and this message that she says she will create a bipartisan council of advisors. She's already said that she'd put a Republican in her cabinet. She's, of course, trying to get those swing voters behind her, those disaffected Republicans. Any indication it's working?
Yeah, look, I've been hearing from some, and she's been using Republican messengers like Liz Cheney, like the Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan in Georgia. She's been using these Republicans because she's trying to serve the message that you are allowed to vote for me as a Republican. And I've been hearing from some that, they're willing to vote for Kamala Harris simply because she is not Trump and she is not Joe Biden. Some of those Republicans had concerns about Joe Biden's ability to serve. And, so frankly, there's not a lot of talk from those Republicans supporting Kamala about Kamala Harris. Sometimes you'll just hear them talk about all of the ways in which she is not Trump or Biden.
All right, J.D. Vance, let's play this. Asked by the New York Times 5 times whether former President Trump lost the 2020 election. Let's play it.
Do you believe he lost the 2020 election?
I think that Donald Trump and I have both raised a number of issues with the 2020 election.
Senator, yes or no?
Okay.
Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
Let me ask you a question.
Senator Vance, I'm going to ask you again. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
Did big technology companies censor a story?
Listen, for as obvious as the truth is that Donald Trump did lose the 2020 election, and his refusal to acknowledge that in this interview, what does it mean? I mean, I assume that most people expected that he, the running mate of Donald Trump, wouldn't come out and say, yeah, he lost, of course, when the former president himself has lied and said he won for several years.
Yeah, J.D. Vance is a smart guy, but let me tell you why he is refusing to state the obvious. It's because this is the issue that Donald Trump himself is unwilling to bend on. It's, the one issue he has not moderated on. He continues to talk about, in his view, as stolen, rigged 2020 election. And he's also instructed his aides when he took over the RNC to focus, not as much on a traditional ground game, but to focus on what he calls an election integrity unit. And in those early months in the summer, early fall, they had more resources poured into that election integrity team than anything else. And they have 200,000 people, poll watchers, poll workers, who are pro-Trump, who are getting ready for the election. And it's really unusual, and it's nothing like we've seen before. And as a result, Democrats have had, and Secretary of State's offices and election officials have had to get ready to respond, in the very least, to be very transparent with what they're doing and how they're counting votes, to combat Trump's disinformation.
Well, the voting is happening now in several states, and the counting starts in about 3.5 weeks. Sophia Kai, thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. You know what time it is. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. It is getting spicy, I'm telling you.
Joining me now, talk about this for a moment and then pleasanter things. Vivek Ramaswamy, businessman, author of Truths, The Future of America First. All right, Vivek, welcome to the show. I want to dig into some more pleasant issues, but this Barack Obama speechifying, I guess he was in Pittsburgh or someplace, gave a couple speeches, playing the race card. Not the economy, not the immigration, not crime, not safety, not anything. It's all about race. And he's telling the brothers, quote unquote, to get back on board. What do you make of that? How do you see this one?
I think it's deeply disappointing, Larry. Frankly, one of the encouraging things about this election is we're seeing the breaking apart of so-called ethnic coalitions. Many Hispanics, many Black Americans coming aboard for the first time to the Republican Party to vote for Donald Trump. I think it's a beautiful thing. One of the accomplishments of the civil rights movement was to say that you can't predict something about somebody's content of character based on the color of their skin. Yet now the modern Democratic Party says based on the color of your skin, you're obliged to vote for a particular candidate. That's deeply disappointing. But I'll give you one silver lining on this, Larry, is that when the Democrats lose this election, as I hope and increasingly expect they will, I hope it's their lesson that identity politics doesn't work. Because here's what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz actually both share in common. You think about this, one's a black woman, one's a white man. Both of them got their job as vice presidential nominee because of their race and gender. So it turns out identity politics doesn't work in any direction. It didn't even work when they tried to go with Tim Walz in that direction either. So when they lose, I hope that's a lesson, not just for Democrats, but for the entire country, that we're done with the race baiting, we're done with the identity politics, and we want a country that lifts all of us up, regardless of our skin color, and unites Americans based on our ideology, rather than our race, our gender, or our skin color. That'll be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, well said, Vivek, well said. Now, a fellow you know a week ago tonight, actually last Friday, interviewed a former president you know, and I want to just play some tape on what he had to say, because it goes to a lot of policy reforms that you also know about. Take a listen, please.
They insulted Elon, and now they're going to need him to restore
Well,
power.
he was great. He came through. He does come through. He would be incredible on that commission, and we'll do
Well, that's the thing, and you not only cut spending, I think you can take a strong look at some of these agencies, and you know the ones I'm talking about. I mentioned them a moment ago, that really are not doing their job. They've become very political.
Well, the one thing we want to do is education. We want to move education back to the states.
Right.
We'll spend less than half, and it seems like every building's Department of Education. For what?
All right, there you have it. He's going to start with education, kind of move down the line, Vivek, and I know that this is near and dear to your heart. So what do you make of it?
Yeah. Look, I think this is great because I don't think it's possible, Larry. Many conservatives in the past have wanted to go reform that bureaucracy, tinker around the edges, be incremental about it. I don't think that works. If you cut off one head of an eight-headed hydra, it grows right back. You have to go to the center of the beast and actually just dismantle it. So we're not in there to reform this bureaucracy. We want to get in there and actually shut it down. Shut down the Department of Education. Send that money back to the states and to the people. And not just the Department of Education, but I think countless other departments in the federal bureaucracy as well. I'm pretty convinced that you could take over half of the federal employees, remove them from the federal bureaucracy, and it would actually function more effectively rather than less. What Elon did at Twitter, I think, is what needs to be done across the entire federal bureaucracy. I'm very optimistic about the Government Efficiency Commission as well. And I think that a lot of the levers we're going to pull here, I think, go beyond just usual partisan talking points. This is about restoring self-governance, where the people we elect to run the government, for God's sake, are the ones who actually run the government again in this country, rather than that class of unelected bureaucrats, which has grown like a cancer in Washington, D.C.
You know, Vivek, listening to this brings music to my ears, too. But I want to ask a couple things. First of all, are you including what I will call the national security agencies? You may not wish to abolish them, but you may want to redo them, reform them, re-something, certainly repopulate them. And then there's the economic regulatory agencies, the SEC, the FCC, the FTC, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I wouldn't want to brush over them. I think every single one of those areas, at the very least, needs a house cleaning. Now, whether you can get away with abolishing some of them, as you suggest, I might be all for that. But they all need house cleaning, and they all need better people running them, not left-wing ideologues.
So I want to talk about those regulatory agencies for a second, Larry, because one of the most remarkable things that's been happening is that those agencies, the ones you named, three-letter agencies, from the FTC to the SEC to a number of others, to the EPA, they have been consistently, not even by like a little bit, consistently losing in federal court. So they're wasting public resources to go after different actors in the private sector. You've got fishermen cases, you've got private sector actor cases, you've got coal miners, that when they go to court, they are losing. So that means the agency's tasked with
Thank you for tuning in to the live show one more time. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. We're currently listening to one of the bold Republican. His name is Vivek Ramaswamy. Let's get it.
supposedly enforcing the law actually have no regard for the law itself. These agencies have lost their legitimacy. They've lost their constitutional legitimacy. The Supreme Court and the federal courts repeatedly slapping them down, saying that you are not enforcing the rules as you're supposed to actually have read those rules as Congress initially enacted them. One of the biggest events that happened was this year, overturning of Chevron deference in the Loper case. That changes the game entirely. Because before that, there was this general doctrine that federal courts had to engage in deference, had to defer to the interpretation of these administrative three-letter agencies. That is no longer good law. The law now is that agencies no longer receive that deference from federal court. This changes the game completely, Larry. Add on to that West Virginia versus EPA from 2 years ago that said if it's a major policy question, you can't write it by regulation. It had to be done by Congress. That quite literally means that a majority, literally a majority of those federal regulations are likely unconstitutional under current Supreme Court doctrine. That is the basis for mass regulatory reform of a kind we have not seen in modern American history. And I do think our founding fathers will be proud when we go in there and actually implement it, both by thinning out the regulations and by thinning out the bureaucracy that in many cases distorts those regulations to serve as a wet blanket on our economy. You want to grow the economy, the number one way to do it is this regulation.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have to agree on the fact that smarter men are joining politics. I mean, listen to this man, bro. Listen to this guy called Vivek, bro.
Regulatory reform, take that wet blanket off. That's how we make America great again.
And I don't want us to forget, though, on top of the economic three-letter agencies or whatever, the national security establishment, both the structure, the institutions of it, and, of course, the embedded people who are running these things year in and year out. I think that's got to get a good look. I mean, if President Trump wins, I think he's got to really spend some elbow grease and some time looking at the whole national. In some ways, that national security grouping of institutions, Vivek, that thing is the same as it was when Harry Truman and James Forrester put up the Pentagon right after World War II. I mean, that's how far back these agencies go. The CIA is the same way. The FBI goes back even longer than that. But I'm just saying, let's not overlook those agencies either.
Absolutely. You're spot on about this, Larry. And this isn't particularly even a Democrat versus Republican point. This is a nonpartisan point. Taking a look at agencies that have lost their way, that in the name of national security have actually betrayed protecting American national security while creating civil liberty threats in the meantime. Virginia Military Institute, VMI, actually invited John Bolton and myself to have a debate. It was a respectful, at times heated, but respectful debate a couple of weeks ago. And I do think that there's room for generational perspectives of difference here, Larry, where if you grew up in the era of the Berlin Wall falling, you might have great trust in the U.S. national security state. But if you look at the failures of the last 20 years, you know that it takes a fresh perspective to say that the methods of 1980 aren't exactly what's going to give us deliverance today. I'd put the U.S. Federal Reserve, that's not in the national security state, but the same thing. Last 20 years, completely lost its way as a new managerial class has taken over. Same thing that happened in the national security state. So the way you're going to do this, I don't think is just through incrementally bringing the chisel. I think you got to bring the chainsaw with respect to the bureaucracy itself. And you know what? If you're always going to take a risk, right, Larry? I can't tell you we know we're going to cut the exact right amount. But the risk is, are you not going to cut enough? Or are you going to take the risk even of cutting a little too much, but then finding out you did and having to rebuild that? That's the risk I'm willing to take. I think we're willing to take. And if we're going to save our country, that's what our founding fathers would say if they were here as well. Sometimes you got to start with a blank slate and build up rather than trying to just tinker around the edges, which is a mistake that I think Republicans have made in past decades.
All right. Well, there may be a terrific opportunity coming up. Anyway, thank you ever so much, Vivek Ramaswamy.
Thank you for tuning in. And if you noticed, the legendary 45th has mentioned that this guy, Vivek, is going to play a huge role in his administration if he actually wins the 47th. So you better be ready to get more from this man called Vivek. It's getting spicy. I'm telling you, the momentum is high.
Trump is someone who takes something that has maybe a kernel of truth to it and sensationalizes it and turns it into what we've seen happen with Aurora. And I think a question that people have, though, is what can you as governor and authorities in Colorado do with federal law enforcement to help crack down on what is, not the issue that Trump is making it out to be, but is still an issue that we've seen happen at apartment complexes in Aurora, even if it's more isolated than it seems?
So from the state perspective, I've, of course, met with ICE and the FBI, both of them at field offices in our state, Aurora, the mayor. Really, everybody has the same interest in getting rid of any criminal activity that occurs. And I think what Aurora faced was absentee landlords that let their buildings become dilapidated. They actually closed one and had garbage piled up in the alley. Again, unrelated to any of this crazy stuff they're talking about, but there were people living in unsanitary conditions, and it's my understanding that the building was closed. So again, this city that Donald Trump's talking about is not the city any of us know here. I was in Aurora this morning. I'm there all the time. It's a great city, great town, and as I said, crime's been down a lot over the last 2 years, and there could be a number of factors of that. Some people say that because immigrants are less likely to commit crimes, that the fact that there's more immigrants is one of the reasons the crime went down. I don't know if that's the reason. We've also invested in law enforcement, and we've in prosecuting auto theft, and that's one of the main categories of crime. The crime that's down to about a third over the last 2 years.
Were you surprised that Trump came to Aurora but didn't actually visit this neighborhood that he has been fixated on for months?
Well, again, Aurora's a huge city. He just came, visited a hotel, and left, as far as I know. I would have loved to show him around Aurora and take him to our beautiful reservoir or any of our great Koreatown. We have a great, I would have loved going out to Ethiopian cuisine with him. Aurora's a wonderful town. He didn't really get to see it. I think he just went to a hotel, did an event there and left. And it's unfortunate because obviously, he didn't really get to experience the Colorado that we all love.
Do you want to see Vice President Harris come?
Sure, of course. We invite everybody, and again, I was hoping that the former president would have wanted to see more of the city, so he could understand that what he was saying about it was inaccurate. We love visitors of all kinds, and the Denver airport. A lot of folks don't know this. It's right adjacent to Aurora. So if you fly into the Denver airport, you're like 2 or 3 minutes from Aurora,
Yes.
and that's the great growing city, over 400,000 people, and I encourage everybody to visit.
I had a college roommate from Greeley who spent a lot of time there. But Governor, beyond what Trump has been saying and his lies, because that's what they are, there are real issues. And when you look into the numbers, there's about 40,000 Venezuelans that have migrated to Colorado in just the last 2 years alone. And when you look at the census data, it shows 5% of the population in the 6th congressional district there, which includes Aurora, as you know, immigrated in just the last year. Has that put a strain on local resources?
Well, look, I mean, this is one of the reasons I'm so excited about Kamala Harris. I mean, she's a candidate that has a plan to solve the border crisis, wants to have border security, wants to create a way to make sure that people are able to work legally rather than illegally. Donald Trump has stood in the way of fixing our border every step of the way. There was a bipartisan plan to add border security agents, to have high tax, expedite the asylum claims. He blocked it, even though it had a strong bipartisan majority. Conservative Republicans, Democrats said, look, let's roll up our sleeves and get it done. So I have confidence that Kamala Harris will fix and improve the border situation, and I know that Donald Trump will make it worse.
When she was asked the other day if there was anything that she would have done differently from Biden, she said not a thing that would come to mind. Do you think on immigration she should have said yes, that she would have handled things differently had she been president?
Well, look, I mean, this is a totally different person. So I'm excited by Kamala Harris. I mean, I think Joe Biden did a fine job as president. There's many things I agree with him on, many I disagreed with him on. But I'm very excited by what Kamala Harris brings. I mean, when she talks about the opportunity economy, when she talks about small businesses, that's something that I'm sure, Joe Biden might like, but it's not who he is. It's not what he talks about. He talks about factories and building stuff, and God bless him for it. But Kamala Harris is talking about the future, and she's the change candidate we need, rather than returning to a former president who had a very mixed record as president, including policies that led to rapid inflation and slower economic growth.
But do you think she should have answered that question differently then? Because you're a governor who's had to deal with immigration in your state.
Well, look, I mean, I think look, she was probably asked it, and it's hard to think of things on the spot, but there's going to be many differences between Kamala Harris and Joe Biden because it's a totally different person. It'll be a totally different team. I think, again, Joe Biden did a great job as a transition to help lead the way for a president that's future-oriented, that embraces the opportunity economy and small business, will take on the border security issue and solve it. She's a prosecutor. She's put criminals behind bars, and that's something that is a great experience for a country that's yearning for a president that will help make us safer.
Listening to Trump's speech in Aurora today, it was incredibly personal about you. I mean, he attacked you repeatedly. He called you a coward, a fraud. He said you were ineffective. He said at one part, these towns. I'm quoting him. He said, these towns have been conquered. And he said, explain that to your governor. He doesn't have a clue. What is your response to what the former president said
Well,
about you?
I'm glad he was talking about me because he's not running against me. He's running against Kamala Harris. So, look, I have broad shoulders, and the more lies and attacks he wants to say about me, the better, because I'm not on the ballot. So I'm glad to distract him however I can. And obviously, again, I love Aurora. I was there this morning at Stanley Marketplace. It's an incredible town. I take my kids there all the time. We go shopping at H Mart. We eat in their restaurants. It's a great town for raising a family, for growing a business, for retiring in. And if he doesn't see it, again, I'm just glad he's attacking me because I'm not on the ballot.
Well, you know what I was thinking about listening to it is he was using the same terms to attack you that he also used to attack a popular Republican governor in Georgia. I mean, he called Brian Kemp also weak and ineffective. And it's just, you know, it wasn't even just to you. You're a Democrat, obviously, and you've criticized him. But he's also said the same thing about governors in his own party.
Yeah, look, I don't know if it's, some say it's cognitive decline, whatever it is. But yeah, he just, but the more he's distracted and attacking people like Governor Kemp or me, whether they're Republican or Democrat, maybe he's forgotten who he's running against. And, and I think that's great because I support Kamala Harris and think she'll be a great president. So, let him attack all these other people and try to settle all these grudges he has. And I don't think that's what the American people want.
Colorado Governor Jared Polis, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
As you heard the governor mention there, crime is actually down in Aurora, a trend that we're actually seeing in most cities in the U.S. right now. But how this apartment complex has now become a national battleground does show the former president's ability to bend the truth until it fits his political agenda and is no longer true. What he describes as a full-blown invasion looks like this: a single viral video from a single apartment complex. Yes, you are seeing footage of men carrying guns, walking down hallways, in one case kicking open a door. The building's owner claimed that they couldn't maintain the building because Venezuelan gangs had taken over. That's when it caught the attention of Donald Trump and his supporters, who don't mention where the city the city says it was pushing back on the landlord to make improvements at that building. Local police rejected the idea that gangs had actually taken over any of the buildings. Those were aspects that did not go mentioned in Trump's speech today.
Because in Aurora, multiple apartment complexes have been taken over by the savage Venezuela prison gang known as Tren de Aragua. They got their way into an apartment building. They threatened the tenants at gunpoint.
I'm joined now by CNN's chief media analyst, Brian Stelter. And Brian, can you just walk us through, what actually happened here? Because this is the phenomenon that we see over and over again, where there is some truth to it, but then it's so wildly blown up by Trump that it's not an accurate depiction.
The video you just showed is real. It's from an apartment complex. There was real crime happening there. That video.
What am I listening to? What? But tap your screen, subscribe to the channel, man.
Was shared and then broadcast widely across right-wing media, across Fox News shows. And from that kernel of truth has become this lie about the entire city being a war zone. From all the accounts of the Republican mayor of Aurora and other local officials, the situation at those apartment complexes is out of control. They're basically blaming a slumlord landlord who lives out of state. The landlord says it's the city's fault. The point is it's under control now. There have been numerous arrests of some of the people seen in that video. So it's under control, but that one viral video promoted by conservative media is what attracted Trump's attention. And I think what's so striking here is that every time I turn on cable news, I hear about pundits saying that this is all about the economy. The election's all about the economy. Well, if you listen to Donald Trump's events, he doesn't think this election's all about the economy. He thinks it's about immigration because he's fear-mongering about immigration every chance he gets.
Well, and it worked for him in 2016. It was actually really helpful in getting him in the White House.
Right.
But this isn't just an isolated incident. I mean, if you look at this, you look at what happened with Springfield, Ohio, where real people live and real people are impacted by something like this.
And we can't ignore the racist nature of these appeals. Yes, there is always a kernel of truth. But, Trump today posted a picture of Hispanic men with face tattoos and said, these are going to be your apartment managers if Kamala Harris is elected. That's a racist appeal. Every American who ever took high school history class knows that when you're talking about vermin, you're talking about bloodlines, when you're talking about people being conquered, Trump promising today to liberate Colorado, This sounds like Nazi rhetoric. This sounds like fascist rhetoric. It sounds like white supremacist rhetoric. And just because Donald Trump's not a Nazi doesn't mean there's not an echo of history here. I just think we have to be clear about the racist nature of the appeals that we're hearing.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in one more time. You guys are the best. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. This is what they're saying about Colorado. Let's listen to what the people in Colorado are saying.
I've said it once, I'm going to say it again. The Democrats didn't realize that it was going to be little old me out of Aurora, Colorado, that exposed the broken immigration system to the entire country. And make no mistake of it, these pictures you see, these mugshots you see, this is not a feature of my imagination. When I started having police officers come to me and tell me, Danielle, there's a Venezuelan prison gang that is here, that is taking over apartment complexes in the city, and we need help. That's pretty serious to have police officers come to a city council person and ask for that help. And when I started asking questions, and I was told about code enforcement violations, let me tell you something. I have never met a police officer in my life that is scared of code enforcement violations. When I went in, when I decided to go in, when I got done asking questions, when I wasn't getting the truth, when I wasn't getting the answers, and I decided I had to take action. I decided I had to go in myself and start moving people out. I witnessed it with my own two eyes. I saw how these people were living in my city, in my hometown. I have been in Aurora, Colorado my entire life. I own businesses in Aurora. I'm a single mom. I'm a community college graduate of Aurora. Everything about Aurora is my home. And let me tell you something. You come into this city and you threaten the residents of Aurora, Colorado, I will come for you. And let me tell you something else. Aurora, Colorado is not a sanctuary city. The millions of dollars, your dollars that were funneled to these nonprofits to place these people into my city, they came through Denver. And let me tell you something else. Denver had better start to keep to themselves. The time of Denver controlling the entire state, these days are over. They are over. If you would have asked me 4 years ago, if I would have ever thought I'd be in politics, I'd have laughed at you. I would have laughed at you. But Jared Polis decided to shut my business. Jared Polis decided to shut my businesses down. What Jared Polis didn't realize is when he shut my businesses down, he woke me up. So I decided to run to represent my hometown. And make no mistake of it, folks, they can threaten me, they can try to silence me, they can lie about me, they can do whatever they want. I'm not going anywhere, and I will fight for Aurora. is so important. It is so important to get out and to talk to people in this election. Get out. Don't be scared. Get out and talk to people. Face them. Because this November, we will vote. And in January, we will have Donald J. Trump back in the White House. I want to thank you all so much for all of your support. You guys have seen in the media how this has unfolded, but so many of you out there and so many of you that I don't know, you've found me on social media, you've emailed me, you've called me. I hear your prayers. I have your love and your support. I feel it. I know it. I'm going to continue to fight. God bless all of you. God bless Aurora, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you for tuning in one more time. You know what time it is. God bless you. We have come to the end of the live stream. If you stayed from the beginning to the end, put it in the chat. God bless you. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. You guys are the best. Your boy Genesis is signing out. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. One more time. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams. Believe in God. I love you. I'm rooting for you. Stay blessed. It is Sunday afternoon. The current time is 2:11 p.m. and today's date is the 13th of October 2024. You guys are the best. One more time. I will be back. You know me. I will be back probably this evening. I will definitely be back. God bless you. Don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to smash the like button. God bless you. See you soon. Genesis is signing out.